All right, hello, welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Frenchie's Funhouse, a place that is not quite fun or French. I'm your host, David Shire. As you know, I love reality television, and I've been doing weekly coverage on these Big Brother updates. And there's a lot to get into in this episode, so we're just gonna march right along to Marchie's Little Orders and to Frenchie's Little Orders, and then we'll just kind of continue along and just break down this week's episode, talk about who potentially is going to win the HOH and who they would potentially nominate in the coming week, and we'll just kind of continue on. We'll continue to kind of break down the episodes and break down what is going on in the Big Brother house and what is kind of the optimal strategy given the players that are playing. All right, so first thing I do want to mention is that there's a lot of editing that I really like so far this season. I found that during the whole narration portion of tonight's activities, there's a really fun little punchy music in the beginning, and I was really feeling it. I was getting really crunk on this new soundtrack that Big Brother has decided to go for the summer. I also don't think the outro song's all that bad. I think that they've kind of found a nice mix, so it's not quite the classic boom boom boom. It's more there's a little bit of that, but it's still consistent with the show. I also really liked a lot of the outro exit things that were said, but we'll get into that a little bit later. All right, so just other things. So we pick up where we left off last week, where we jump right into Kylan's nominations, and it feels like the show is kind of acknowledging that they didn't really do a great job editing the reason why Kylan was on the block. And so they put in a whole bunch of shots of everybody in the house being like, dude, Frenchie, like, what the heck? Like, why? Like, we kind of understand why Alyssa's there, but also not really. And Kylan being up there just makes no sense because they didn't really show the subtext of Kylan, potentially throwing out names, him being kind of close to Derek X. There's just like a lot of things that the edit missed, and so they start off the show explaining that Kylan's not really the reason why Kylan is up there is baffling, and Frenchie has what I can only describe as a well, we'll get to that in a second. So Frenchie, Alyssa right away goes ahead and talks to her King's Alliance, and she does a really good job here, just trying to garner support. I think that the Alliance talk in this episode was actually really interesting in terms of how everybody's kind of perceiving their teams. It does seem like there's a lot more protection of the original teams than I initially thought, especially with Brent talking about Derek X. This week, Brent has kind of been treating Derek X like a secondary class citizen, saying things to Derek X like, oh yeah, dude, you owe me, and you stabbed me in the back, bro, and like you wouldn't even be here if I was not doing everything I said. And so it seemed like, for a while that Brent probably viewed Derek X as more expendable, but it is interesting to see in the DR that Brent is a little bit more protective of his team than maybe we first initially thought going into this week. Not to excuse Brent's douchey behavior, but that is something to kind of keep in mind with even all these teams. All these teams are thinking about their team chemistry and thinking about keeping their team strong, which is really interesting and something we haven't really seen much of on Big Brother. And so I found that pretty interesting. So Alyssa's talking, she's talking with her alliance, and then eventually she goes up to Frenchie, and she starts talking to Frenchie, and Christian's there with her, which is probably not the greatest thing in the world, because the whole reason why Frenchie put up Alyssa is because of their close relationship. But I really love this scene, and I really love what Alyssa does here. She really tries to distance herself from Christian, and I thought the funniest thing in this scene was there was a moment where Christian says to Frenchie, he's like, dude, you're only putting us up here because we look like we could be a good couple together. Don't you agree, Alyssa? Alyssa just gives Christian like this death stare, because that is so dumb. Christian was like just putting a giant foot in his mouth, and like, I get it, like Alyssa is a conventionally attractive woman, and Christian, I do believe, is attracted to her, especially early on. And it was just really funny, the fact that he was like, yeah, Alyssa, yeah, like we look good together, right? And then Alyssa's just reaction was just like, Up. You gotta stop this, Christian. This is the reason I'm on the block, Christian. This is the reason why if I get voted out week 1, I'm not gonna have any friends on the outside, Christian. So it was just, I thought it was a really great moment. And the moment that comes right afterwards is just another stellar moment where Frenchie has his George Bluth moment, and he just looks into the camera and he's like, I think I made a mistake. I made a huge mistake. Poor Frenchie. His HOH is not going super well. I mean, he's nominating Christian. He's realizing that, oh no, I nominated a woman. Like, if only this could have been avoided. If only I had some sort of weird power to nominate who people in this house, and I could have put up people like Brent or people like Travis. If only I had this power. It's like, okay, Frenchie. So he's trying to like garner sympathy from us, but it's totally ridiculous. And so yeah, we can kind of continue on here. We get a little bit of a package of Sarah Beth and talking about her bisexuality. It's a really lovely package, actually. I thought that the way that she kind of explained how she kind of grew up in this Christian upbringing and still has a lot of trouble with that, and explaining her the fact that she could date a man but chooses to date a woman, I thought was kind of interesting, and how she thought that it could have been, she could make it quote unquote easier for her family, but just kind of choosing who she wants to love is just an important choice for her. And I thought that was a really good package, and it also kind of shows how the other people are viewing Sarah Beth. I think she's getting like a real sweetheart edit, and Brittany especially, the fact that Brittany said that Sarah Beth was somebody that she really wanted to work with, I think really shows Sarah Beth's position in the house right now. I don't think she's necessarily a power player quite yet, but she's doing a lot of good work getting emotionally invested with a lot of these people, and Sarah Beth might be somebody to look out for in the future. The others seem to like her. I really like her, and granted, I don't think I rewatched the first episode today. I still don't think that lying about being like a scientist was like anything, but Sarah Beth, I think, is primed to make a deep run in this game, and I really like seeing that. Next up, we get the whole we get Frenchie's new target, and Frenchie, I mean, he's a man of many targets, and so next person that's on Frenchie's hit list is, of course, the lovable Derek X. And I say lovable because this whole segment is pretty weird. First off, Derek X is wearing like a weird like trench coat, and he's also like wearing like one of these weird like fisherman hats. And my dad has a hat like that, and I hate it when he wears it. So seeing Derek X wearing this hat like actually kind of triggered me. And it just kind of reminds me of the guy in Home Improvement, the neighbor character. Whenever I see a hat like that, it's just so dorky. But I think that's kind of part of Derek X's charm. And so Derek X is talking. Frenchie's like, yeah, man, like, being a farmer or whatever, I'm like super observant. And so he like apparently listens in on a conversation to Derek X. And I still didn't quite catch exactly what Derek X says to Frenchie to try to get himself out of it. I'm assuming he kind of said that he was working with Travis because of Frenchie's reaction being like, see, you idiot, I caught you in my trap. I laid out the bait, and now you're the big fish, because now I know you're in an alliance, and I'm gonna reel you in and spit you out, or whatever you do with fish. I don't know. I'm not much of a fisherman. I'm not like Frenchie, I don't dream of big fish that I'm trying to hunt in these Big Brother streets. All right, and so so this whole conversation was pretty insane to me. There was one really beautiful moment that I loved, where Frenchie essentially has this conversation with Derek X. Derek X admits to him that he thought potentially of being in an alliance with Travis. Frenchie then proceeds to threaten Derek X, being like, dude, you got like my southern accent. I'm still working on it. Brother, you got a real good chance of of being on the block this week. I'm definitely looking at you as a target. He's essentially threatening Derek X. And then what's so funny is that Frenchie like goes to open the backyard door, and Derek X, just being like the nicest human being, like helps Frenchie out and helps Frenchie open the door. I just thought it was a really great character moment for Derek X, and it's the kind of thing I live for in this show. All right, next up we get the alliance forming, the Cookout of Alliance forming. And we see Azza, Tiffany, Derek, F, Xavier, and then eventually Kylan gets informed in this. I don't think he's introduced in this segment. He's talked about by Xavier potentially bringing Kylan in. And so we see this alliance, and they say that they're playing for a bigger purpose, especially with this last year with everything happening with BLM, that they want to produce a winner that is a person of color in this season. And I think this is actually going to be a really strong bond going forward, and it'll be interesting to see how this kind of develops as the season goes on. I think the only big worry that a lot of people have for this alliance not doing well is Derek F. His relationship with Frenchie, the fact that Frenchie is really close to Derek F, and the fact that Derek F has been known to talk a lot about different things that he's doing in the house. It could be something that could be brought up, but I also think that, you know, when you say you're going to play for a bigger cause, and when you have this kind of like, you know, this deeper connection with people, I think that it does have some legs. We'll see how it goes. I also really loved Tiffany in this moment, and Tiffany is by far becoming one of my favorite players of this season, saying that, you know, she might be in the cookout, but she's going to be the grill master, and if she needs to get rid of somebody, she will. And I believe it from Tiffany. I think that coming into this season, the only thing I really saw of Tiffany, you know, was the interviews, and one of the things she said in one of her Instagram stories is that she's a very controlling person. And I thought, oh man, like if she kind of comes in with the mentality of that she's going to be maybe a possible first boot. And then when Frenchie won, I was like really excited. And then now Tiffany's actually proving to be a very capable player, and I think that she has a really good shot to make it far in this game. She's playing what people are describing as a winning game, right? So if she makes it to the end, I'd hope she wins, but we'll see if she gets there, right? Being like, you know, a little bit more of a strategic threat does tend to make a target for yourself. So we'll see how that goes. Next up, we get a segment where Brent and Frenchie are making a final two deal. The only thing I wrote for this note was boo, because that would just be that would be so awful if that actually happened, and I don't even want to spend any time on that because ultimately that's just not something I want to think about too much. The one thing I will say though is that I think Brent is actually playing Frenchie a little bit more than we kind of expected. The fact that Brent was already talking in the DR about keeping Derek X safe because of the fact that he's on his team, and the fact that he was pushing so hard for Travis, and Brent kind of gets what he wants this week is a little bit promising for Brent's game, and the fact that he has a little bit of skills when it comes to this game. However, I do think that Brent is going to be running into some trouble in the next couple of weeks, and we'll talk about that why in the spoiler portion of this not podcast, in the spoiler version of this YouTube video. All right, so next up so Brent and Frenchie are talking a bit, and Frenchie of course says, look brother, like if it comes down to it, like I can't put Travis up because I'm a man of my word. And I promised Travis, night one, that I was not going to go after him. And if you think my Frenchie impression sounds bad, you just listen to Frenchie in the DR, and you'll realize that he's doing like a weird country impression in the DR. So, but anyway, so Frenchie basically saying can't put up Travis, promised Travis that he would not go up. And of course, Frenchie is a man of his word. Like, how can we forget, you know, Frenchie, the man who said that he would not put up women, not put up people of color. And then we cut to the Power of Veto competition with Kylan and Alyssa sitting on the block. Oh, wait, yeah, that's right. But yeah, so not much to say more on that. We do see the people who get picked for the veto competition are Tiffany, Travis, Derek, Kylan, Alyssa, and Frenchie. And when I say Derek, I'm going to say Derek F, Derek X, and when I refer to Derek F, I think I'm just going to go with Big D, because that's what everybody in the house is calling him now, and so that's what we're going to kind of go with in the future. Only other note I had in here is I had two notes, and I'll add a third, is Travis is called the Hawaiian Stallion, which I thought was pretty funny. And also, Derek X is incredibly tall, and I didn't realize it until he was standing next to Travis and kind of dwarfing him. Also, one other thing to mention about Derek X is that I really love his black hoodie with the little polka dots. Like I really want to buy that, and maybe I will, and wear that on the channel. So look out for that. And ultimately, Travis says that, oh yeah, man, I don't really need to win this competition, you know. And it just feels like Travis is like this lost little lamb, and he's about to get swept up in Hurricane Frenchie. And I feel bad for him in this moment, because he does seem genuinely to feel safe, which is kind of baffling in this house. Like, if I was in this house, I would not feel safe for a single moment. Derek X, though, is out here speaking the truth, saying, look, Brent let me know that Frenchie was planning to backdoor me. I got to do whatever the heck I need to do to win this competition. And yeah. I don't think it serves well for Derek X's longevity. I always say when I watch Big Brother that if you're saying that you need to win a veto or you need to win an HOH in the first 5 weeks of the show, you're not long for this game. But unfortunately, Derek X is just kind of in this weird situation where he needs to win this veto. And what I really loved is that we got to see Derek X use a really interesting, well, not interesting, he used the optimal strategy to win this. And it's good to see that out of Derek X. You know, if he needs to win a competition, he can. And with kind of a little bit more going on in the live feeds this week, I think that Derek X could blossom into a little bit more of a player. A lot of reports are saying that Derek X was probably a recruit of the show. The fact is that one of the things that one of the producers said to him is that they thought that Derek X would play a Will Kirby-esque game. Whatever, I don't understand. I think that producer might have been super high on something, because Derek X is no Will Kirby. He's just one of the nicest, broiest dudes I've ever seen on the show. And so the fact that he even used him in the same breath as Will Kirby was bizarre. But it does explain Derek X's answer to say what was his favorite duo. Oh, Chilltown. And so, but it will be interesting to see how Derek X kind of progresses throughout the game. And it was a great veto win for him. It was one that he needed. And Frenchie, of course, then does his Frenchie thing and goes into a tailspin with Brent riding in the back, freeloading right by the bathrooms, right? Is that what Brent said? It was really weird, but hopefully it's a plane that comes crashing down, all right? Travis, the only other thing I wrote here is that Travis says... this is gonna hella blow. So, I mean, even if we're losing Travis this week, I'm not feeling too bad about it. Travis was not somebody I really picked up on as somebody that could win this game. But, you know, it does suck that he is leaving. He is a really big friend of Derek X, and so that could hurt his game in the future. But we'll see. You never know with this week, right? Other things that seemed to happen, I was noting that Derek X did give good reaction face, which is good. When Frenchie told Derek X that he wanted him to use the veto and that he was going to backdoor Travis, Derek X gave this really good and so, you know, good for screen time for Derek X. It's being optimally used, which I'm always a fan of. Other things to note, yeah, I mean, he used the veto. A lot of people were going crazy after Derek X used the veto on Travis, especially Azza. I thought was really funny in the diary room, calling this first week a total disaster, saying that we're all in Frenchie's Funhouse, and what a fun house to be in. It's been a crazy week. Some things have been kind of problematic on the feeds, but overall, I think this was a pretty fun week of Big Brother, and it's a great start to the season. I also was watching this with my roommate, and I just died laughing when Frenchie was like, "This week was a total success. Like, what on what? It's like Frenchie is just on this like completely weird different universe where everything went his way and Christian went home, but or maybe he like doesn't even recognize Travis and Christian. Like maybe Frenchie's brain can't tell Travis and Christian apart, and so when Travis is on the block, Frenchie's like, thank goodness Christian's on the block. And then next week when people are like, when he sees Christian again, he's like, what are you doing here? It's like, I didn't go home. He's like, yeah, you did. Like, we sent you home over Alyssa. He's like, no, dude, that was Travis. Oh, like, I feel like that's what's going to happen maybe next week. Obviously not, but we'll see. All right, so that's about does it with what happened on the episode proper. If you want to bounce out here, obviously I'm sad, you know, that you're not enjoying the live feeds because they're completely ridiculous and awesome. But we'll go into a little bit of live feed spoilers, and then I will see you tomorrow night as we cover the eviction episode. All right, now I'm gonna give you 2 seconds. 1 and 2. All right, I'm just gonna assume everybody's gone now that wants to be gone. All right, so things that are kind of happening this week on the live feeds. Again, I'm not like the super live feeder. I'm kind of like the guy who like reads the New York paper and then tells people what happened in the New York paper. That's kind of where I'm at with the live feeds because, you know, I have a day job. There's a lot to do, but there is some interesting things developing in the live feeds. They still haven't mentioned the Slaughterhouse, which is a majority alliance that could be realized next week and could just completely dissipate depending on who wins this. I'm assuming they're going to show their formation. It basically includes half the house. I didn't write down all the names for who's in the Slaughterhouse because it could or could not be a thing later on. But I do think notable members are Kylan, Frenchie, Brent, Christian. I believe Alyssa's in it. And Xavier. I think that's who the Slaughterhouse is. There might be a few people. I think maybe Big D was in the Slaughterhouse as well at one point in time. It's a mess. It's total chaos. Frenchie basically invited half the house to be in his alliance, and the other half of the house definitely knows that the Slaughterhouse exists. I think Tiffany was even a part of it too. Oh my goodness. It's a lot to keep track of, but it doesn't seem to have a lot of legs. A lot of people are already targeting people within the Slaughterhouse. It seems like general consensus, though, is that there's a few people out there like Sarah Beth and people who are kind of floating in the middle that would probably put Derek X on the block given the opportunity this week. There's actually a lot of people who are looking to put Brent up on the block. Asa and Tiffany are the two people that are really looking at Brent. Asa might, Tiffany herself might be the one person who might put Frenchie up, though probably not. And I think one thing we've learned the most about this week is despite the fact that Frenchie has done absolutely nothing right this week, he will still probably be safe and probably make it to week 3. How much further past that will depend on if things go his way, I believe, and if he kind of freaks out. But we'll see if that's good. Other missed things in the episode. There was a missed portion of last couple of days where Frenchie was thinking about convincing Derek X not to use the Veto and potentially get rid of Kylan at one point. But being that Derek X never really kind of wavered on that, I could see why they cut that out of the episode. But Frenchie has just been really unhinged. He's not been going to bed at a reasonable time, and really none of these house guests have. On the feeds, it's been noted that about 1 a.m. in the morning is when the house guests like actively decide, you know, it would be a great idea. I know we've been like goofing around and like flirting with each other and playing like Mafia and stuff like that. But now that it's like 1 a.m. in the morning, I best, you know what we should do? We should start playing the game really fast, and they like just rip off their daily civilian clothes like Superman and just like running around the house and start like making active things, or at least Frenchie does for the most part. Everybody else, you know, they're still playing it chill, but Frenchie's just been all over the place. It's been exhausting. This is not how I thought that this YouTube channel would start, with such an exhausting HOH to kind of keep track of. It does look like that Travis is the majority to go home tomorrow night. He did make a pitch, and we'll see how that went throughout today. It's just been because you just never know. You never know with this big Big Brother 23 house. I would bet money that Travis goes home, but I could look on Joker's updates right now and just see that, oh yeah, Frenchie's completely changed his mind and now Travis is staying. And I'd just be like, okay, Frenchie, whatever. Like, is that, like, I don't even know. I don't even know. Yeah. Other things to note is that Xavier and Big D are looking to potentially throw this next HOH, which I think is kind of a mistake. A lot of people have been talking, the podcast I've been listening to has been talking about the importance of these early HOHs. And I kind of agree. Like, the first weeks of the show, you really want to structure your power, and then you really want to build your power. So winning these first HOHs is actually pretty important for a little bit of longevity. Yeah, there is a potential of you being labeled as a competition threat and potentially be taken out in the middle of the season. But overall, I think that worry is far less than not being in the majority alliance early on, especially in these more modern seasons where we just see time and time again these big alliances winning. This season a little bit weirder though, because there's as the weeks go on with the wild card competition, with the fact that they are split up into teams, like half the house is safe. So we'll see how that kind of that continues as we kind of play the game. But it is something to note that I think that Xavier, while doing pretty well his first couple of days in the house, is kind of falling behind. He's not really interacting with people. He's kind of trying to lay low, and other people are kind of seeing him as a threat potentially, which troubles me because I really like Xavier and I really want to see him do well. And the fact that he's also throwing potentially this HOH is concerning, and the fact that I think he would nominate Derek X even, which is kind of wild. Other targets though, Claire is being considered as a target. Brent has talked to Frenchie about potentially getting rid of a woman next week because Travis is going this week, and they are a little bit concerned about a woman's alliance. And there has been some forming. Claire, Tiffany, and Azza have been the three people I think are closest in a woman's alliance. They formed a couple, one of them being like the Jackpot, one of them being a alliance called the Sirens. They even formed one with Frenchie that Frenchie then proceeded to rat out, called French Kisses. As I was remembering that alliance name, I just it hit me. It hit me how terrible that alliance name is. Which that one's that one I think is probably the most interesting one in terms of what's being done with it. Frenchie seemed to really force that alliance to be made, and all the women were like, yeah, you know, like, whatever, like, we're not going to take this seriously, and if it goes wrong, we're just going to blame Frenchie. But then Frenchie ratted out his alliance with the women, and it seems like he's kind of created a target for the Slaughterhouse to go after, which is pretty interesting. I don't think he did it intentionally, because I don't think anything Frenchie does in the house is intentional, but it is interesting. It's always good when you're in a big majority alliance to have an enemy, and if Frenchie did this intentionally, knowing that that the house would turn on a woman's alliance, it is a pretty interesting strategy. But ultimately, I just think he kind of did it because he's Frenchie, and I don't know. All right. Also, other things to note, Tiffany, I think, is been absolutely charming on the Big Brother feeds. She had a moment where, well, what's really nice about Tiffany is she is a really big fan of the show, and she had a moment where she said that it's crazy, like, I'm such a big fan of Dan, and Dan doesn't even know who I am. And she was talking to Derek X, which the two of them have been getting really close, and Derek X said to her, he's like, well, yeah, I mean, like, but he probably knows about you now because you're, like, on the live feeds. And then Tiffany just, like, broke down in tears and was like, oh my gosh, Dan, he knows me. And it was just really cool. It was a really sweet moment from Tiffany, and it's probably what I would do if I was in the house and, like, I thought about, oh my gosh, Dr. Will, like, oh my gosh, I might talk to Dr. Will in the jury house if we do that whole jury segment thing. It'd be so cool. And so Tiffany really fanning out for Dan was a really cute moment. And I think Tiffany is a really interesting person to watch. The one clip they keep showing is that one on the show is the clip of Frenchie listening in on a meeting with Tiffany and a bunch of other members of the house. And what they didn't show in that clip is that Tiffany did go up to the door and open it and saw that Frenchie was there, but it was more intentional than what they showed on the show. Tiffany apparently saw a shadow walking around the door, and so when she got up, she was like, hey guys, you know, like, we got to be careful because people can be listening in. And then she opens the door and there's Frenchie, and she knew that somebody was there, and I think she was probably surprised it was Frenchie, but she played it off cool, you know, like she was just like, oh yeah, I'm heading out. So I think Tiffany is somebody to watch, and I hope she does well. And that's pretty much it. If you would be so kind, I did just start a Patreon. I'll put a link in the description if you want to help out the channel. There's so much other content that I want to do for the channel, and I'll try to think of some Patreon exclusive things. I'm thinking about doing like a live stream, talking to Q&As, like things down the road that would be really cool to do. If you could also just like and subscribe, maybe leave a comment, that helps me out with the YouTube search results. And I just hope that you have a great and wonderful rest of the day. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.